Hey, how's it going everybody? It's Moto. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to adjust the chain on your Yamaha TW200. So just a couple tools you're going to want for the job. You're going to want some breaker bars, a 19 and 22 millimeter socket for either end of the axle. You're also going to want a ratchet, some sort of torque wrench that can go up to 66 foot-pounds. You're also, if you don't have these sockets, you can simply use a open-ended wrench or an adjustable wrench. And then to adjust the chain, you're going to want some sort of caliber, or if you don't have that, you can simply use a ruler with the millimeter marks. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Okay, so in order to check the drive chain slack, you're simply going to position your ruler behind the swing arm, behind the chain, and I like to position it right in the middle. You don't want it too close to the sprocket or too close to the kickstand, basically right in the middle of the swing arm. The next step you're going to do is mark where the chain sits right now. So it's right at the 3-inch mark, and with just a finger, push it up and then mark it again. And that range is the range of your drive chain slack, and as long as it's within the 35 to 60 millimeter range, you should be good. And as you can tell, mine is basically within that range. It could be a little bit tighter, so we'll move over to the axle and I will show you how to adjust it. Okay, so the first thing you're going to need to do is loosen the axle nut so that you can adjust the chain using these Snail Adjusters. And to do that, on this side of the bike, where the chain guard is, you're going to want to put the 19 millimeter socket and breaker bar. And then on the other side where the nut is, you're going to want to put your 22 millimeter socket. And using the two breaker bars, go ahead and loosen the axle nut. So now that you've loosened it a little bit with the breaker bar, I like to take the ratchet now and just go ahead and loosen it the rest of the way. And remember, while you're doing this, you're going to be holding the other side with the breaker bar because there's a nut there and you don't want it to spin. Okay, and once the axle is loose enough where you can move both Snail Adjusters on either side, that's good. You don't need to remove the axle all the way, just enough to get these adjusters to move. Alright, so Yamaha did a super nice job with these Snail Adjusters. They're super simple and super easy to use. If you need to tighten your chain, you're going to take this adjuster and turn it counterclockwise, just like that. And if your chain needs to be loosened, you'll simply do the opposite thing and turn it clockwise. And the only thing to consider with this type of Snail Adjuster is obviously whatever you do to this Snail Adjuster, you want to make sure you do the same thing to the other one. I recommend moving one tick at a time. One tick does about 20 millimeters of adjustment, which is a pretty good amount. And even if your chain is pretty loose, you'd be surprised within 1 or 2 ticks of these guys, your chain should probably be within spec. So as you guys could tell from before, my chain was a little bit loose, so I'm going to go ahead and move this Snail Adjuster counterclockwise 1 tick. And we'll go ahead and check the chain, but first, let me make sure I adjust the Snail Adjuster on the other side. Okay, and taking a look at the Snail Adjuster on this side, I'm just going to do the same thing I did to the other side and move it 1 tick. Alright, so now that you've properly adjusted the adjusters on both sides and they're both in the same tick mark, go ahead and recheck the chain slack. Alright, and to recheck the chain slack, it's the same process. Put your ruler behind the chain guard and behind the chain. Once again, I'm going to make my mark over here on the bottom of the chain with the 3-inch mark on the ruler. And then I'm just going to push up and back down. Check one more time. And as you can tell, that is a little bit tighter and that is also within spec, and we should be good to go. Alright, so let's move over to the axle and tighten it back up. And a really good tip I found useful from MC Garage is put a little rag in between your chain and sprocket. And once you have the rag in there, go ahead and turn your wheel a little bit. Readjust the camera for you guys there. So as you guys can tell, when you have this in there, it basically just provides a little more tension and make sure that your adjusters aren't going anywhere. And now we should be good to go ahead and retighten the axle. So taking your torque wrench, make sure it's set to 66 foot-pounds, just like mine is. With your torque wrench properly adjusted, go ahead and retighten the axle, making sure to hold the nut on the other side. And just go until you hear a click. And there you go, there's the click. We'll do it one more time. And you should be all set. So go ahead and take that rag out just by rolling your motorcycle back a little bit and pulling it right out. And then one more time, you can definitely go ahead and recheck your chain. And I did, and mine is still within spec, and you should be all done. And the only other thing I like to double check before I finish my chain adjusting is sometimes when you move your rear axle back and forth, the rear brake can come out of alignment. So let's move over to the other side of the bike and just double check to make sure that's within spec. Okay, so over here on the other side of the bike, we're going to be checking the free play on the rear brake. Yamaha recommends this to be within 20 to 30 millimeters, and in order to check it, we're just going to be using the same method as before. Going to line up a point with the brake lever and a point on the tape measure. So we'll use 6-inch mark as an example, and we're just going to push down and then back up one more time. And as you can tell, this is not within the 20 to 30 millimeters. It's a little bit loose, so let's go ahead and adjust this. So to adjust the free play, we're going to be coming back here, right by the drum brake. And if you turn this nut right, we will be tightening or allowing less slack or less free play. And if we loosen this, we're going to be allowing more free play. So mine was a little bit on the looser end, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this a couple of times, and then we'll go ahead and recheck it. All right, and let's take a look to see how that did. Put it at the 6-inch mark again. And as you can tell, it's much tighter, and that's within spec, so we should be good to go. All right, so once you've torqued down the axle nuts, you've checked the rear brake, and you've also just gone ahead and double checked your chain slack. That's basically it, and you're ready to ride. Adjusting chain slack on the Tdubs is super easy. Yamaha has made it really simple with these Snail Adjusters. They're a little bit old school, and obviously every motorcycle has their own way of adjusting the chain slack, but I find this way to be pretty easy. Don't be afraid to adjust it and try it out for yourself. Obviously just take your time and do it right. Paying a dealership to do this is really not necessary, and you don't really need any mechanical skills or anything like that. As long as you have some basic tools, you can do this no problem, and it really only takes about 10 minutes. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you're not already. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, please let me know in the comment section down below. And if you have any suggestions for future videos, definitely let me know. As always, thanks so much for watching, and ride safe.